you are new or you haven't been around for a little bit, we are working on our sew along for the Easy shirt. And this shirt can be made with the hood or the collar. And but for the sew along, we're doing the hood. So it's also behind me.
Yeah, and last week we put the hood on.
For the sew along,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we put
Mm-hmm.
the hood on. We're nearing the finish line. It's
Yeah.
been going very smoothly. Knock on wood. Um, Hi, Mary. So today we're going to keep moving on that. And just like I have said before, you don't have to be making this shirt to learn, either Islander sewing techniques, tips, tricks, different things that you can apply to other garments that you're going to make. Or if you want to make this one in the future, you're not going to make it right now. Um, so basically, you don't have to be doing the sew along to learn.
No, but you know what's really nice, I think, is that if you make one now, sometime this year and this winter, and then next fall you say, "Oh, I want to make another one of those," you'll still have the whole sew along to refer to. Uh, so you'll always have that available anytime you want to use that pattern.
All right. Well, we're gonna get moving because we want to get as much done as we can. We're on a time schedule today. But first, today's the day.
It is.
Our last sew along was the Everybody shirt. If you're not familiar, go check that out. And one way you can see different versions or variations and how it fits different people is by going onto our Facebook page because we asked everybody who finished that sew along to post a photo of the finished shirt, either on themselves, who they made it for, a dress form, whatever. We got quite a few entries or photos, and they're all splendid. Some
Yeah.
people did more than one. I know somebody did a tunic version and the regular
Right.
length version because it does come in both of those in the same pattern. There were some modifications
Yes.
made that were really
Mm-hmm.
cool. So please check that out on our Facebook page. But I have everybody who made it and posted it.
You have everybody who made it. Everybody should.
Everybody who made it, everybody, and then posted it on our Facebook page in this cup. And I am going to draw a winner for a $25 Islander Sewing Systems gift card. But it's like more like a credit. Brenda will just put it on your account. Um, but I will do that now.
All right.
So we're very excited. Hi, Nancy. The smiley face you can see. All right, gonna pull one, just one. And it goes to Linda Smalley, Linda
Oh.
Potts Smalley
And,
on Facebook.
and Linda's made at least two.
At least two she posted. One,
Yes.
two, three.
At least two.
I feel like one post, did she post two and then another? Anyway, at
Well,
least two that she has made. Check them out. They're beautiful. Linda, we will put that credit, $25 credit on your account. So the next time that you go in and want to buy something, that money's sitting there waiting for you.
and what else is going on?
Janet wanted to give everybody something. So
Everybody who made an everybody.
everybody who made it, everybody and posted it will receive a goodie in the mail. Right?
Yes.
Is that what we're doing?
Yes.
All right.
It'll be a surprise. So, but thank you all for participating in the sew along. You not only inspire each other, but you inspire us to want to teach more and just be here every Tuesday. So thank you for that. We feel the love. And Jessica has left the room. So, another thing we wanted to talk to you about today, or just to give you a heads up on, is we have some Equino and some Coca fabrics on the website, and we're trying to make room for some new stuff coming in. So, we are discounting it even further than before. So, now the Equinos and the Cocas are at 35% off while they last. So go take a look at those. These are fabrics that come from Japan. They're very unique and special, and you don't usually see them at a 35% off. Anyway, so it's a good price and a good deal and great fabric. So take a look at that when you get a chance.
All right. So what are we going to start with today on our easy shirt?
Well, it's time now to prepare the sleeve to put the sleeve in. So before we put the sleeve in, we want to put the sleeve placket on. So the sleeve placket is at the overlap where the cuff attaches, and I've got one already on here, so I'll show you what we're doing before we do it. Okay. So this is a very traditional sleeve placket. Comes to a point at the top, and it allows for the sleeve to open up to put it on. It'll get a button in it, a buttonhole and a button eventually. But that's the sleeve placket right there. And so now we're going to put one on the other sleeve. Thank you, Jets.
It wasn't that great, but at least it was in focus.
Okay. All right. So, did you want to get ready with the camera?
Yeah, so you're starting here at
Yep.
the sewing machine.
Mm-hmm. So, when you cut out your sleeve, there was a narrow, long rectangle cutout at the bottom of the sleeve. And I'm going to show you right here.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
I don't see you.
You see, you're up there.
I know something's wrong.
Oh,
There we go.
hey. All right. So here's our sleeve. And this is the wrong side of the sleeve. And the reason with this flannel, it is slightly softer on the right side, but it's hard to tell when you're in the middle of construction. So I put a lot of chalk marks to remind me that this is the wrong side. And I've done a little prep work here that will help you. So I want to show you what I've done. I've marked the center of the placket on the side that does not have the interfacing cut out. Okay, so that's the center, which is going to match up to the center of the cutout in the sleeve. So I've also marked the center of the cutout. Now you'll notice on the pattern there were a couple of notches, but they're only on one side and they don't really help you stay on track. So this is a technique with the marking the center that Brenda likes to use, and she suggested that I share it with you, and I think it's a great idea. The other things I have done is, and you'll understand why as we put this together, but I've marked on either side of the center, a few inches either side, the stitching line, which is 1/4 of an inch. I've also marked 1/4 of an inch a little ways down on the left side of the opening. And finally, I pressed this in half, and I gave it a really nice hard press with the clapper. And anytime that you're going to apply a placket or a folded cuff, before you stitch it at all, either side on, you want to press it in half. That will help you keep it flat, straight, and from getting tweaked. And tweaked, by tweaked, I mean one side gets sewn a little bit further to the other side, and pretty soon you have these folded marks that roll along the edge. And you don't want that. You want it to lay nice and flat. So all of these things will help you keep that straight and on track. So now we're just going to sew the placket to the wrong side of the sleeve. Remember, we're sewing it to the wrong side. So we'll just get it lined up And this is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Start with the needle down, back up to the raw edge, come forward. Now, remember, fingers on top, thumb underneath. Grab a hold of that shirt so you're not letting the shirt or the shirt sleeve ease at all. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot one other step. And I'll do it here upside down for you. You want to mark a 1/4 inch above that opening. Use the glue chalk. Yep. 1/4 inch above that opening, just like that. And then you're going to snip at a 45-degree angle at each corner right up to that mark. See if I can do this left-handed. I'm not really good left-handed. I have to bring it around here. Okay, so you see what I've done? I've cut that right up to that chalk mark. And you want to do that before you put it in the sewing machine. But you can always recover just like I did. All right, so we're going to stitch right up. And when we get to this line right here with this needle, that's when we're going to stop. And then we're going to turn the sleeve and the placket so it's straight. Because we've made those clips, it'll straighten right out for us. And I want to stitch across that stitching line all the way over to this intersection where this stitching line intersects with this one. That's why we drew those in there. It'll help make it a lot easier to get this placket on nice and square. All right, and then we're going to turn this out, and then we can just go for home. And you should have been keeping an eye on getting that thing marked in the center mark that I showed you how to make. I did not, but I'm not accustomed to doing that. Okay, so Brenda? Yep. Let's see how we did with our center mark. So there's our center mark, center mark. We did get it right on. All right, can you press that? Yep, thanks. All right, so Brenda's going to press that seam allowance toward the band. And then we're going to finish stitching the band onto the sleeve from the right side, turning under a 1/4 inch as we go. You always want to make sure you get a nice hard press on something like that. Okay, so Jessica has just stopped to tell me that some of you are saying that it keeps pausing the film. So I'm going to attempt to do this next step, but if it keeps pausing, we don't have any control over what's going on out there in the internet world because we've got everything just the way we always do here. So no one's using our bandwidth at the moment. So whatever is happening, I don't know.
Outside our control.
Outside of our control, obviously. So, shall I go ahead, do you think? What are the comments saying?
It seems like it's freezing a lot. I don't like quick pauses, it seems like, but I can't see on their end if this is
Did you press it
causing.
toward there?
Yeah.
Look at this.
I know. Let me do it again.
Yeah.
It just-
Press it from the right side. And give it a clap.
doesn't want to seem in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, apparently there's no hurry because we're not.
All right, some people say theirs is fine. So let's keep going, and you guys keep us updated. You know, if it is prohibiting you from understanding what's going on. Okay, so Brenda says that she went out and came back in and it's better. So maybe some other people want to try that too. And just remember that this will be posted again when we're all done on Facebook and on YouTube. But please let us know if it gets to the point for many of you that it's not viewable.
Okay, so here we are. We've got the seam allowance pressed toward the band. And you see now that the band is folded exactly on center, I know just exactly how much to turn under and keep it nice and straight. So I'm going to turn under the 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to need my magnifier today. This thread matches so well. I want to make sure that when I fold the 1/4 of an inch under, that fold lands right on top of this previous stitching. And then it will be nice and flat and square.
Hey Janet, do you think you could do that, like just show them perpendicular to how you have it now, because your hand is kind of blocking? Yes.
So this stitching right here where we stitched it on, when we turn this under a 1/4 of an inch, we want that fold to lay directly on top of that stitching.
Great.
All right, so that's the goal. So we'll just get it in place right at the very beginning. And then you get your needle down and your foot down to hold everything in place while you prepare the rest of the seam. All right. So 1/4 of an inch under, lay it on top of the previous stitching. Now, one thing to always remember is when you're doing an application like this, and this works on waistbands as well, we've stitched this already. So whenever you stitch something, it can pull up ever so slightly. So to keep it on track, it's sometimes necessary just to give a little more pressure on the underneath. Hang on to it a little bit snugger so that everything lines up. So we're stitching this at a needle width away. See, because it's folded in half, we'll know if we've turned under too much because it won't lay on the fold, or we haven't turned under enough. So again, that helps us stay right on track. We'll just work our way to the other end. And that, because we did these clips, we're able to straighten this right out so that it's easy to work with. Get there. If it's nerve-wracking, you can always chalk the entire seam allowance so you know exactly where to turn. I know that some of you have a lot more sewing experience than others, so you have to take that into consideration. Give yourself the aids that you need, but try not to make it pins. So many times the pins distort the stitching anyway. You get those pins in there and then you got to work around them, and they become a bit of a problem. So we have it stitched a needle width away. All right, now we're going to go to the pressing station and press this into submission. And the reason I say that is because this is a 6.4 ounce flannel. And we talked a few weeks ago, maybe it's been more like a month and a half ago, but we talked about how all fabrics, just because they're a certain type, aren't created equal. For example, the flannels that you buy at some of the chain stores seem a lot softer and have a lot less body. Well, they're probably a 4 ounce as opposed to a 6.4. So when you're buying on the internet, it really helps to know the weight of something in order to compare it to what you're looking for. So again, what we're using here is a 6.4 ounce. So from the right side, and I know I'm on the right side because I've chalked the wrong side, we want to kind of take this, get this straightened out so it's a good orientation, Jessica. This kind of goes out at about a 45-degree angle. So see how that is? Press here. And then we're going to fold this, and that's how we get our point. Now this needs just a little bit of finessing here so that these points are evenly across from each other. So I'm going to play with it a little bit here. Okay, so once we have that the way we want it, you see how this sticks up. And I know I got an email from somebody the other day, and she said, I'm using a heavy fabric, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to get this to be flat and nice. Well, we're going to use a clapper. So we're going to give it a lot of steam. And then we're going to really push down on the clapper. Now normally we give it a good pressure, but in this case you may even need to give it a little hammer. It'll depend on how thick your fabric is and how hot and how much steam you can get out of your iron, because the steam really does help. And once you've got it as flat and as symmetrical as you need, which I think I do right here. Remember, flannel will stretch a little bit. Now we're going to go back to the sewing machine and stitch that in place. So I will tell you that stitching around this point can be problematic if you have a entry-level sewing machine. If it's, I'm not going to name any brands or anything because they seem to all have an entry level, but the problem is they just don't have the power sometimes to get through that much thickness. So give it a, maybe even practice first if you think your machine might not want to handle this. So how wonderful is this? My line, 1.5 inches below the point, is right here on this intersection. So that's where I want to go across. So you're going to mark down 1.5 inches from the point, and we're going to stitch right across there. That's what will hold this in place. You may want to put your buttonhole in first. There's a mark on the pattern where you're going to put a buttonhole right here. But I don't want to do that because I want to show you the process here, and I'll take care of my buttonhole later. So I'm just going to come straight across. And I'm just going to follow the little placket here, shape, and go around it. And this is where it can be a little tricky getting through this end of it. Again, if your machine doesn't go through that much thickness. We want to just go. Right up to the point. If you can hit right on the point, that's great. Not sure I am. That might do it. And then come right back down to where you started. And there we have it. And like I said, you're going to have a buttonhole in this area right about here.
Oh, can you show that again?
Oh, sorry. You're going to have a buttonhole, I don't know, right about here, I'd say. It's on the pattern piece. You'll know, or it's in the book. So when we get to buttonholes next week, it will tell you exactly where to place that buttonhole in the directions on the pattern guide on page 29. All right. So now, what? It's not, we're not doing well?
Oh, you're fine. Just don't touch the mouse.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so now we're going to set the sleeve. And I'm going to set the sleeve using the serger. It's a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And I've shown you before, and I've got videos on YouTube that show you how to set a sleeve. But I always have done it on the sewing machine. Well, if you do it on the sewing machine and you want the seam finished, then you've got to go do it on the serger. So that's 2 times around the sleeve cap, where if you do it on the serger with a 4 thread, you only have 1 operation. So, so the sleeve always goes against the feed dog. Because we know anything that needs to be eased, the feed dog will help us do that. So what we want to do is match this up at the underarm and find our first notch. And there they are, they match perfect. We're going to come in here with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. So I've set my serger a little bit wider than it normally is. And again, I use that as my third hand while I get everything straightened around. Now, I don't want this to pull, so I'm piling it in my lap. So now my sleeve cap notch, you may or may not be able to see that little nick that I put in there, matches right up to the seam of the shoulder. I'm going to hang on to that. And now this easing that's going to take place is after the curve, so we'll come up to the curve, and now we see that we have opposing curves, and that's what needs to be eased in. So I'm going to put my hand underneath and just pull that underneath part till it's flush with the top part, which is the arm side. So you see how I just pull that in? And it will take in all the ease. You won't have any tucks. Everything will go just as smoothly as it is for me, because it's just that easy. So once I get up here, I'm going to stop and let that hold it in place while I find my other notch, which is in the back, which is our double notch. So we have a double notch here. You can see I've just made tiny little clips. You get those matched up. There's no guesswork because you know you've got it right. So then, oops, what's going on? Again, we have a little bit of easy to do. So again, I'm going to put my hand underneath. And the action is just like this. Grab the fabric and pull it away from the machine. Away from the edge there. Just pull it into place. And it's deceptively easy. When you think about the way we were all taught to put sleeves in, and then you see this, you think, oh, that can't be right. But it is. It's just that easy. Okay, so here is our sleeve. And you can see we don't have any tucks or puckers. It sits in there really beautiful. And now we're going to press that seam up against the shirt. Not to the sleeve. Now Brenda's going to do that for us. Thank you. I get a question once in a while about why some people are assuming that seam should be pressed toward the sleeve. Now sometimes in a jacket, when we want a header in the sleeve, that happens and it gets pushed over there so that it fills in the sleeve and sits real nice, but not on a shirt. On a shirt, we want to top stitch that seam down, and you can't top stitch that seam down onto the sleeve cap because it's rounded and you've already have some ease in there. So the sleeve cap's bigger than the seam. So if you tried to stitch that down, it wouldn't look pretty and it wouldn't lay nice. So yes, definitely press the seam toward the shoulder or toward the shirt itself. Yeah, I can make it work the rest of the way, Brent. Because I want to tell them about that one spot at the yoke that needs a little extra encouraging after you press it. So now we're going to stitch this down at a needle width away. So again, our seam is toward the shirt. Thank you, Brenda. And remember our rule about honoring the curve. We're not going to straighten this out and just go for it. Yes, that would be fast. Yes, you'd be able to keep the seam allowance, but you'd also be stretching out and stitching into place the curve to be straight, and it won't hang as nice. So we want to feed it in on the curve, and we want to be stitching a needle width away. That's what keeps that seam nice and flat and won't need any extra maintenance or pressing after it's laundered. So sometimes, because this seam is so thick, it might need you to give it a little extra encouragement to be over, even after you press it. So, and the rest of it is easy as pie. Remember, if we get down here to this curve, we want to feed it in on the curve. And there we go. Now we have our sleeve in. And look how nice that looks.
Hold on.
Okay.
Unless you want to hold it up further.
Yeah. I don't know I can't see what I'm holding, what I'm doing here, but anyway, it looks really pretty. So now I want to give you one more tip today on construction, and that is putting the hem in.
I can show them that. Lovely.
I love the look of this fabric so much more than I did when I bought it. And I started making it up. I just bought another whole bolt of this. We're going to get it in right after Thanksgiving. It's so sophisticated because it's not stark white. It's an off-white mixed with a black and a gray. I just think it's beautiful. Okay, So when you go to do a hem on a shirt tail, there's a couple of things to always keep in mind. And one of those things is that there's a inside curve at the hip where the side seams come together. And if you've ever tried to hem it after sewing those side seams together, you probably had to have a little tuck in the outside of the shirt just to get that hem up there because there wasn't enough fabric. So what we do is we hem it in advance. Now you see how much fabric is missing here? And if you put these two together, you see how much is missing there? So I hope you can see there's a lot of threads there. But it's about this much. And so if you try to hem that after you stitch it together, it won't work. So what we do is we hem them in advance, and then when we sew the seam together, it looks great and works perfectly. So I'm going to give you the tips on hemming that start out with crimping. So you may have seen this in one of our other sew-alongs, but just in case you haven't, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to stitch at about 1/4 of an inch from the raw edge. And when I first get started, I'm just going to stitch straight because there's not much of a curve right here. So I'll just get it started. And then as I approach the curve, and this is real important, just come back here and fold that fabric up and push against the back of the foot very firmly and don't let go. Now watch what happens when I do that. The fabric is going to pile up back there. And that's exactly what you want. It seems odd, but when you see the results, you'll be thrilled. So once we're out of that curve, if you have to let go, then come back and start over by pushing some up against it again. And once we're out of the curve, we can just continue with that 1/4 inch. So this is what it looks like. And you see what's happened, just like with cupcake papers, it's just taken in the extra that's in that hem, but done it in such small increments that there won't be any tucks or puckers. So now we're going to hem it by turning just, I know that stitching is not going to really, here's, you can see it here. So not quite on the stitching, just past it, so that when we fold this in half, the stitching is gone. And this creates about the 5/8 inch seam allowance that we're looking for. Now before I start stitching this, I'm going to double check and make sure that the front on the other side is going to be even. Oh, that can't be right. Okay, I need to take that up a little bit more. Okay, so that my fronts are going to hang beautifully and match all the way across. So, all right, so then we're going to stitch from the right side, and it's important that you stitch from the right side because we are easing in that curve, and you can't ease it in if the curve is on the top. So you see I folded that, and then I'm just going to feed it on the curve. I can feel with my fingertips where that thickness is that I want to hit, which is the needle width away. But it's going to be at about a 3/8 inch because we folded under about 1/4. So our seam allowance left is about 3/8. If that makes sense, it all adds up to the 5/8 inch seam allowance that is there. You see, we're just going to fold that up, and of course we've got that empty space over there at the end. And so there's our hem. It's all eased in, and now all we have to do is press it, and it's nice and flat. Okay, where are we at with time, Jess? I did the back yesterday, so you can kind of see that as well. Wrap it up. Okay, so that's going to be it for our sew along today. I hope that everybody's internet issues were solved enough that you could follow along. And next week, we will put the side seam underarm seams in and the cuffs on, and then we're done other than buttons and buttonholes.
All right.
We
Did you
haven't-
like pay them today or something?
Why?
A lot of compliments came in.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know. I didn't pay anybody that I know of.
Well, I don't know. Jan Squires is in here. I think you might have paid her.
Thanks, Jan. Check's in the mail. Jan loves to make shirts. She makes the Islander shirt. She lives in Florida. She makes the Islander shirt for her hubby a lot. So she was really in one of my classes years ago, and we really enjoyed each other's company.
Okay, so if you do need to watch this again, remember you can watch it on Facebook, or Brenda will get it up on YouTube shortly, and that should take care of any of those glitches, because it's an internet issue, not like a filming issue. Not everyone is having them, so it shouldn't be a problem to rewatch it that way.
And I hope everyone noticed the red and black one that I just finished. Well, it still needs buttons. But that red and black plaid that I told you about that my grandson was disappointed I didn't purchase, well, I purchased it. And I made it up, and I'm really glad I listened to him and Jessica because it came out very nice.
All right, so we will be back next week
We
to
will.
finish up, right? You think?
Yeah, we got rid of, yes, I know it's Tuesday before Thanksgiving, but I think that we kind of eager to finish up our shirt. So we kind of toyed with the idea. We usually take the Tuesday before Thanksgiving off, but I think we want to come and just finish the shirt, and then we can start after the holiday with something new.
All right,
Okay.
sounds good. We look forward to seeing everybody then.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week on Tuesdays at 2 for Islander Sewing Systems. No pin.